read as we are we our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come,
Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
Remember last time we said there is, we're talking about the stage in the Bible, in the short church history of the Bible, the history of salvation, where God makes a covenant with Abraham. And I said, I'm going to ask questions. You remember? You remember. Or which chapters in Genesis that summarize, that have the mainstay of the covenant? Because we have to be serious scholars of the Bible, not just amateurs reading and just forgetting. Yes. David? 5. Chapter 5. Chapter 5 is the status of, actually it's the genealogy of Cain. Which chapters that pertains to? Chapter 6 is the flood.
The covenant.
Chapter 6 is, I'm talking about chapters of the Bible. This is chapter
Yeah,
of the book.
chapter, yeah, the book.
Genesis 12.
That's the book.
12, 15, 17.
12, 15, 17, 22. Thank you. That's Genesis. We are in chapter 6 in the book, in the introduction of the Old Testament, where this whole view of the Old Testament is given. There's 16 chapters. So Genesis 12, 15, 17, and 7. What's in Genesis 12? Anyone? Genesis 12 starts the beginning of the story of Abraham. What are the things that is pertaining to the covenant with Abraham in chapter 12? And with the calling was what? Yesterday I started with the pre-sermons, the one on dogma. We talked about faith. Why Abraham is the father of faith. What did happen in chapter 12? Calling and? Huh?
Promises.
How many? 3 promises. What are they? 1. I will make you a great nation. Number 2. I will make your name great. Number 3. I will make you a worldwide blessing. In your seeds, all the nations of the earth shall bless themselves. So those are the 3 promises. And I said specifically here, this nation is the word goy. We focus on this word. I said goy means people with land. People without land are people. People with land is a nation. See what? When God's, but just, bear with me. When God's going to punish Israel, what He's going to do? Take them out of the land to go back into being a people who has no ground, who has no place. That's the punishment. Because the first promise entails land. You understand? That's why they are so emphatic on having Israel. They has to have it. Because they have to have it because it is the blessing. Without it, they are not a nation. Then chapter 15, God worked on which promise? On this promise. Yes, and the chapter is divided into 2 pieces. The first piece, Abraham, do not be afraid, Abraham. I am your shield. I am your exceedingly great reward. And then Abraham says, what are you going to give me? I go childless. Like, what's he focusing on? I'm going to make you a father of multitude, but I don't have I don't have any child. How are you going to make me a father of multitude? Then God says to him, and he says, I found the solution. I know what you're trying to do. You want my servant to be the one to heir and to be the heir. And indeed, if they are born in my house, they are mine. Remember how Jacob, when he married Rachel and Leah, Leah was giving four boys, but Rachel didn't have. So what's the solution for Rachel? Here, take my servant girl, enter to her. I have a child, it will be mine. That's the way things are in the old times. So he's saying, maybe the servant will be the reason for me to have children. What did God say? No, this one will not inherit you. The one comes from your own flesh. I can tell you, Abraham got excited. What Romans would say, I'm sorry I'm jumping back and forth, but it's something excited to think about. When you go to Romans, and St. Paul speaks in Romans, he says, against hope, he believed in hope to be the father of many nations, as it was promised to him. And we were talking about this yesterday. Hope, believe, hope. First, against hope. What's against hope? He's old, he's 90, and as Sarah is 80. There's no hope for him to have a child. But then God said to him, no, you're going to have a child from your own flesh. Because he was hoping in the beginning, that he would have a child from his own flesh. But after time passed, he lost that hope. But then God came in the time when he lost the hope and said, no, you're going to be the physical father of his descendants. So he believed in hope. Because he had a hope to have it from his own flesh. That hope gone, now he is going to believe it. So I'll make a great nation in chapter 15. He divided the chapter into two. Son, a biological son, and the land in the second part. And with that, sacrifice a covenant. He made a covenant. And this is the covenant, son and land. How about chapter 17? Which one? Huh?
Is that a good name?
A great name. Why we hear in chapter 17, covenant of circumcision. And promise, kings, royal line will come out of Abraham and Sarah. Very interesting, and we can have a whole study about what circumcision means for them. Circumcision does not just involve the husband, or the man, or the boy. It involves the whole family. In that covenant, God changed his name from Abraham to Abraham, and changed the name of Sarai, although she's not going to be circumcised, from Sarai to Sarah, and he spoke about her. God is very ordered. It's time to speak about Sarah because she's going to be involved in a covenant with God. That covenant involved Abraham. This one is going to involve his wife and his son. And he named the son. In that covenant, he said, you will have son and you will call him Isaac. The names of the three was changed. Two of them, the husband and wife, were changed, and the son was named, actually, before he even visited him. The third one,
22.
when is it going to be? It's in the offering of Isaac.
And son.
And this is the worldwide blessing, it's a covenant. Right? So we have 4 chapters, 12 are the promises, the 3 promises. 15, the first promise is upgraded to a covenant. 17, the second promise is upgraded to a covenant. 22, the third promise is upgraded with a swearing, and this is one of the most profound ones. It's very, very befitting for the third one to be sworn by God himself on himself. He said, what did he say? It's unheard of. This is something that makes anybody go crazy if you hear about it. God said to Abraham, I swear by, God is swearing by who he's going to swear by? By himself. I swear by myself. Can God swear by anything else? Think about it. God is swearing an oath. He's going to swear by,
Himself.
he said, I swear by myself that I will bless you and you will be a blessing. When he offered Isaac. So every one of them is pointing to another covenant. These are all the covenants with Abraham in a complex covenant. There's 3 pieces. This one is fulfilled then. When are they going to have the land and be a big nation? Exodus, Moses. So the Mosaic covenant, the covenant of Mount Sinai, is the fulfillment of the first promise and the first covenant of Abraham. The second promise and the second covenant will be fulfilled in the kingdom, David. And the third promise and the third covenant will be fulfilled in Jesus. You're not seeing it here. When Jesus is going to establish a universal church. So when Matthew is going to write, listen to this. When Matthew writes in the New Testament, what does he say? The book of genealogy of Jesus, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Because Matthew is the one who's going to show you that Jesus is the second David and the second Moses. So he's bringing him back to why is son of David the son of Abraham? Because Abraham and David were given the second promise about the kings. And when the angel is going to come to St. Mary, he's going to say, he's going to sit on the throne of his father David until his kingdom shall have no end. Who was promised this first? Abraham. Okay, so this is the covenant with Abraham. It's very important to understand. The covenant with Abraham was not meant to renew the covenant with Noah. What is it meant to be? To specialize. They're specializing now. That God wants certain stewards, certain servants to serve humanity. And those servants will have to be a king, a prophet, and a priest. Where he's going to take them from? He's taken from the line of Abraham. God did not choose a king from Egyptians. He didn't choose a prophet from the Egyptians. He didn't take a priest from the Egyptians. He took a priest and a king and a prophet from Israel to teach the world about God, to pray for the people, to serve them. And that's why the covenant with Abraham was established. Who do you really, who follows the covenant with Abraham? Specifically Abraham, I'm not talking about Moses. His family. So Jacob is under the covenant with Abraham. Isaac is under the those saints that you celebrate in the Synaxarium belong to the covenant with Abraham. Anyone who comes between Abraham and Moses, because after Moses now we're following a new covenant, which is a covenant with Mount Sinai. They'll be more specific. But anyone who is an Ishmaelite, even Muslims now, if you want to think about it, Muslims should be under the same covenant. If they are truly believing in Abraham, if they truly say that they belong to Abraham, they should be under the covenant of Abraham. So anyone who belongs to Abraham, all the children of Abraham, that includes the Ishmaelites, the Arabs, the Jews. So this is the covenant with any specific persons that you want to think about. I want to also go in chapter 18. 18 is where the 3 people come to visit Abraham. When they come to visit Abraham and give him the promise of Isaac. But this is a summary of this, okay? With the summary of the covenant. So what are we doing in the Bible again, back again? This is just focus again. We're reading the Bible as a story of the church. What is the church? The family of God. How God makes a family? By a covenant. And we said the covenant can be represented by 2 things that we know, familiar with: marriage and adoption. People who are not related to each other, blood relation, but they come to be family. When you marry a husband or a wife, or a husband marries a wife, from now on she's not somebody's stranger. Before they got married, they were strangers. He's not responsible, she's not responsible. They see each other and say hi, bye, and that's it. But once they get married, there's a full responsibility. Flesh and blood responsibility. What about adoption? Why not giving birth? Because giving birth is not a covenant. It's like Adam and Eve, right? Something is natural. But to make a covenant is strangers who don't belong to each other, and the covenant become. Why is that important? Because God and us, we are strangers. We don't belong to Him. We're not in the same nature. It's, as heaven is far from earth, God is nature and God's ways are far from. So how come God calls us children? What did He do? He made a covenant. You get this? So the church we're becoming the children of God, the people of God, by a covenant. And in the covenant with Abraham, 3 promises, chapter 12, upgraded to 3 covenants, 15, 17, 22. And each of those covenants that's upgraded from the promise is going to be fulfilled in another covenant in the future. Is that simple? Straight? Okay? So, see if we can. Is there anything else in the covenant with Abraham that we had not done? And this is the summary. Promises, nationhood, name, worldwide blessing. The covenants in Genesis 15, that the one from 12 is turned into a covenant. Genesis 17, the dynasty. Genesis 22 is the blessing. In fulfillment, this one was fulfilled in the time of Moses and Joshua. This one was fulfilled in the time of David. This one in the time of Christ. In that covenant, we can actually follow the steps of a covenant making. The step 1 is a calling, right? God called Abraham in chapter 12. The next step is purification. What is the purification step for Noah? What was it? The flood. When he banished sin, he killed everything that's dirty and impure. But what about in the time of Abraham? What did he do? The circumcision. To the Jew, to be circumcised, you're pure. To be uncircumcised, you are defiled, impure. Okay? So what is the third step? The real kind of height of the covenant with Abraham is actually the third one. The worldwide blessing. When God swears by Himself. So in any covenant, you go in a calling, a response, like a man goes to say to the woman, I love you, I want to live the rest of my life with you, we want to bond and be one flesh. That's what we call that a calling, right? And the response of the woman, if she's agreeable, what does she say?
Says yes.
Yes, I trust you, I trust myself to you. That yes is the faith, is the response. I believe you. What's the second, the third step is a shower. They have to have a shower before the marriage. When St. Paul speaks about it, he says, I want to bring a pure virgin, a virgin that is purified, a shower or a cleansing. And the last one is a swearing of an oath in front of audiences. And this is where God swears an oath. Okay? Let's say, in the chapter 17, the change of the name, the change of his wife's name, the giving of Isaac's name, we talked about this. It's a purification procedure. Any uncircumcised is considered impure. This covenant is a grand covenant. He didn't ask him for anything. But then the righteousness, Abraham was called righteous by the response. When he responded to God and said, yes, I trust you. I trust you, Lord, and God considered it righteousness. Okay. I think that's what's there, and I summarized it in this one page. All right. Now, we move to the next one, which is chapter 7, and see how the Abrahamic covenant continues. There's a verse there in Genesis 15 that I always want you to look at. What's the meaning of it? From verses 13 to 16. Is there an analogy, that spiritual analogy in Abraham's calling? How did the children and grandchildren of Abraham carry on the covenant? How can we understand the blessing right in Genesis 27 when Isaac wanted to bless Esau, but Esau refused it? Why was Joseph both favored and hated? Tradition as covenant transmission. What's the significance of Jacob blessing of his children? Why was Judah assigned the royal role? The Christological and covenant with everyone. Every one of them is a very significant one for us. I try not to load this with unnecessary information. This is not sidetracks. It's one line, stream. You're gonna have to understand it to understand what we do today in the church. And to understand the Bible, you have to understand that stuff. Okay? Now, first one, Genesis, this verse. Since the first time I read this verse, something caught my eyes. You cannot have it better than this. Then the Lord said to him, in the same chapter, he gave him the land, when he said to cut the animals. You know for certain, he says it's going to happen, that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and that they will be enslaved and mistreated there. What's he talking about? They're going to go to Egypt and be slaves. Which will be in which book is that? Exodus. Exodus starts from the death of Joseph and takes us all the way to the birth of Moses and what happened after that. So he's telling him about Exodus. But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves. What did God do in Exodus? Not that. Before the army, the chariots, only the chariots. The plagues. 10 plagues, one after another. He's hitting them. And afterward, they will come out with great positions. The detail God will not forget for everyone to take. Jewish, very Jewish. Right? This is, you're saying a summary of the book. And you have to mention this little detail that as they're coming out, maybe we don't know this, as Egyptians, we try to forget the hard things, the hurtful things. So they were coming out of Egypt, and everyone went to their neighbor and said, can I borrow your necklace? Please, I'm going to a big feast in the desert, can I borrow your necklace? And the women, they were in funerals. All of them have dead people in their house. They said, what are you talking about? Take whatever you want. They bring their jewelry, they bring their gold, their silver. Take. So they took a lot of things and they left Egypt with great possessions. Why? They're going to build the tabernacle to God. That's what it is. However, when you will go to your ancestors, you're going to catch up with Nahor and Terah, your father, in peace, and be buried at a good old age. In the 4th generation, after 400 years, your descendants, 400 years, they call them 4 generations, your descendants will come back here, for the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure. Wow. So he's saying to Abraham, I'll give you this land, but to be fair, I need first to empty it for you. But I'm not going to take these people out. They have not done something bad to take them out. And Moses is going to tell them God has actually sent the bees, the wasps, to take them out. They don't have to do anything. But he had already decided, God decided that they will take 400 years. They're going on a destruction track. They're going to destroy themselves in 400 years. So I'm not going to have you kill these people. We have not done anything to be killed for. Wait until they finish their whatever they are planning to do. They're going. And sometimes this is why the prophets always had said this to Israel. You're setting yourself on the same track that the Canaanites were set, the Amorites were setting themselves on. What do you expect? The same treatment. God is not biased against, with Israel, against the nations. He's going to do this to Israelites. The same thing he's going to do to. It's almost like in God's way of thinking this is natural course of event. A person continues in their sin, and they keep doing it over and over and over again. They're setting themselves on a track of destruction, right? Okay. So at the same time, while the Lord is making the covenant of land, because that's about land, and nation with Abraham, the fulfillment of the promise was revealed to him. God spoke of the sojourning of the family of Jacob in Egypt. The details of how they would go to Egypt was not given, but we know it. It will be through Joseph. Joseph is going to be the link. Later we saw the unfolding of God's plan in Joseph's mission. God spoke of the Israelites' hardship in Egypt, of their exodus with great possessions. God told Abraham of their final arrival in Canaan in the 4th generation. God told Abraham of the reason for this temporary detour is that the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure. God had known that in 400 years from the time of his covenant with Abraham, it would take 400 years for the Amorites to do enough evil worthy of their expulsion from the land. Here, in one short prophecy, the Lord told Abraham of the summary of all the events from the covenant with him, all the way to the events in the book of Joshua, the conquest of the. So that means Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Joshua. 4 books in one verse. Huh? And but Deuteronomy, Deuteronomy and Leviticus too, but they are like piggybacked on the, like I said, this is a narrative. So the narrative story in Genesis, the rest of Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Joshua are all in this verse. And here, in short prophecy, he did that. The Lord told Abraham of many things, including his judgment of. Didn't he say that? I'm gonna hide from my beloved Abraham, as if you have a very intimate friend, a confidant, and you're debating within yourself: should I tell him this one or not? Right? You always have that. Should I tell my friend about this deep secret? He's already telling him about what's going to happen with his descendants. In chapter 18, he's going to tell him, I'm going to Sodom and Gomorrah, their cry is coming up to me. I need to go and see what's going on. So Abraham was truly a close friend of God. He's an intimate friend. This is somebody to look at. Huh?
Ask him what do you mean?
Moabiyin? Amorites, you mean?
Yeah.
Amorites is coming from the table of nations from Canaan. The children of Canaan. They had the Amorites, the Girgashites, the Jebusites, thank you. You have like at least let me go to the internet and I'm gonna give you the table of nations. You will notice it's chapter 10 in Genesis. Jebusites have a very interesting story, right? When they came to the promised land, the Jebusites came with the torn clothes and they didn't want to because they knew they're coming to kick them out. There's a judgment on them. And he said, look at us. They had torn clothes, dry, moldy bread, empty water bottles, shoes that are torn. And they come to Joshua and the elders and they say, here we want to make a covenant with you. Swear to us that you're going to have peace. And then the naive Joshua and his elders said, swear to us that you're not in the middle of the land because we're told to have to kill you, all of you. And then the people said, no, we're not. We swear. And they believed them. So they made a promise to them by God that they will not kill them. And then when they come into the promised land, they find that the Jebusites actually are in the heart. They were actually over Jerusalem. And they said, you cheated. They said, well, what do you expect us to do? Let you kill us? Let's go Genesis 10. Bible Gateway, Genesis 10, and we're going to take it from here. Okay. Canaan is the son of Ham. So he's part of the son of Ham. So go up a little bit. Let's go back up a little bit here. Here's the sons of Ham. Cush, Egypt, Put, and Canaan. And in NIV use Egypt, actually it's Mitzrayim. So the 4 kids of Canaan are Cush, which means black in the original language. Means the father of all the Africans. Egypt, Put, that's Libya and Algeria and Tunisia, northwest Africa. And Canaan, the father of all the inhabitants of Lebanon, Israel, and a little bit of Syria. And then the sons of Cush talks about all the fathers, the origins of the African countries. And then you have Egypt, the Ludites, the Anamites, the Lehabites, the Naphtuhites. I don't like the names. Canaan was the father of, listen, Sidon, the city, Sidon. And that's the firstborn. Hittites, the famous Hittites who have a lot of archaeology. Jebusites, Amorites, actually the most advanced of all the Canaanites were, so they are all the children of Canaan. Girgashites, Hivites, Arkites, Sinites, Arvadites, Zemarites, and the Hamathites. This is the Amorites are the most advanced. If you're talking about Canaan, the best group of them, the one who had a lot of technology, the Amorites. They were the rulers in the area. So when you talk about Abraham dealing with them, he dealt with a lot of Amorites. Sidon is a little bit far. You got that?
Yeah.
So when God speaks about them, he says the sins, what they were doing. They were worshipping Baal and Ashtaroth. The worship of Baal and Ashtaroth in the Canaanite culture was very, very anti-human. So they can offer human slaves. They dedicate their girls for prostitution in the temples. They don't have, they have the laws of how to deal with one another and the punishments, but when it comes to the gods, humans were without Christ. So anyone in a dry time, or he feels like his piece of land, because they're all farmers, is not really producing anything, after 2-3 seasons, he takes his firstborn, cuts his throat, and push him on the altar for Baal to be burned. And for some reason, have been doing this for ages. Anyone who would do anything other than that, they would kill him for whatever reason. So the humans were not really important at all. So there's a lot of that God has been watching happening in Canaan. There's spiritual lessons we're going to have to say about how he trusted in God. That's the thing. There are many aspects that can be looked at as models for intimacy with God. First is God who's initiated the relationship through calling Abraham. This initiative established the covenant with God, not man. God is the author, the one that established the covenant, not man. It's not on me. Later, when a person is tested, they can trust in God and not in their own strength. Faith is trusting God to always do what God promised. Second, the human participation was in detaching from all earthly bonds, family, country, and even his only son. The detachment is the second lesson. The great ascetics followed the same example, lived as sojourners, exercising fasting, vigils, and poverty to gain closer intimacy with God. There are times when the friend of God must go through a darkness of faith where nothing seems to make sense. Only trusting God's power and love would keep the friend of God going through the darkness. Ultimately, the saints who walk the journey will find their rest and consolation with God. That's what we get from Abraham in general. Not talking about specifics here. Okay? Isaac, now passing on the Abrahamic covenant. So there's a covenant that God established with Abraham. Now it's going to have to be moved from one generation to another. How is that going to happen? The story continues. The church is going on. The church life. Isaac. First, he starts with Isaac getting married. Abraham is instructed the head of his servants to bring a wife to Isaac from his family in Mesopotamia, out in Iraq, to the town where Abraham came from, Ur of the Chaldean. That's the name of the town, Ur. One of the big three, if you study social studies, there are big three cities in the Sumerian Akkadian culture. This is one of the hubs of civilization. You know, civilization has two hubs: Egypt, and Mesopotamia, which is the land between the two rivers. Mesopotamia, the land between the two rivers. And in Mesopotamia, the oldest culture, even older than the Egyptian, is the Sumerian. Right? And in Sumeria, they started the culture, they started the cities, the beginning of all the cities. And the first cities were Ur. And there's another two, and I don't remember the names. So Abraham came from one of those cities. Abraham had the servants swearing an oath not to marry Isaac to a daughter of the Canaanites. Why? You see, there is a maintenance here. A maintenance is happening. Why Abraham enforced, don't marry from the Canaanite girls? He said, I'm going to die. I want to make sure that Isaac is married to someone from my own, not from the Canaanites. Think about it. Why?
They're gonna come with their visions and their dreams.
First, they're gonna distract Isaac. They take him, although he's a consecrated now. We talked about this. He was put on the altar. They're gonna pull him out. What else? They're under a
his wife.
At first.
Huh?
الفاميلي أصلا his wife كانت من
Sarah.
Mhm.
Sarah is from Ur. They're both coming from the same. He called her my sister at one point. Apparently, they were related.
his
So,
mom
huh?
comes for the same mom.
Most probably. She's coming from the family because they know how they say she's my sister, but she's not really his sister. Might be his cousin, might be his second cousin. When they say we're brothers, he said that to Lot. We are brothers, but Lot is not his brother. What's Lot? Yes, his nephew. Lot is the nephew of Abraham, but he called him my brother. So when he calls Sarah my sister, she's not really his sister, and they will not do that. But she's not. Most probably she is a cousin or a second cousin. Okay. So why is he not wanting the servant to marry his son from a Canaanite? One, she's going to change him. It's going to push him to go somewhere else. Second, and the more important, they are under. God already told them the Canaanites is going to be judged. So you take one of them. To Abraham, that's a no-no. He said, don't do anything. If he's going to stay single and not marry at all, don't give him a wife from the Canaanites. So, okay, who is going to do that? We'll look at it. The reasons of Abraham's strict instructions are the calling of Abraham to leave his homeland and to live. He said two things. So he said, okay, I'm going to go there. And, Eliezer said, I'm going to go there, my master, and find a beautiful, nice wife for your son from your own clan. But she doesn't want to come. Should I bring Isaac to her? And I said, no, don't bring Isaac there. Why? So his whole life is structured around God's promises. Why? Because God told me to get out of there, to give me this land. So don't take my son back to the land that God wants me to leave. And so what if I don't find a wife? Should I get him one from here? He's looking at the options. He said, no, they are cursed. It's almost like Abraham is walking a straight and narrow, very narrow way. There's not too many options in it. You see that? But he trusts who? He says, I know it's a very strict, very tough, and options are not too many, but I'm going to trust God. This is continuing on with the covenant. He have heard God's promises. He wants to continue with it. He's not going to leave, even if it's not convenient. That is the point. So, and ever regard to the evil ways of the Canaanites that would end in their destruction. Isaac, a living sacrifice, we called him that, embodied the blessing of God to Abraham, and through his descendants to all the nations. Isaac begot twin brothers by Rebekah, Esau and Jacob. Isaac had to pass the blessing of God to one of his sons. It was natural that the blessing should be passed to the firstborn. What happened now? Esau and Jacob are going to pass on the covenant. Esau was a skilled hunter who abandoned the way of Abraham and ignored the strict instructions of his grandfather Abraham. He took two Hittite wives who were Greek. They are named Hittite. And again, who is Hittite? The Hittites are part of that. We saw the table of nations. The Canaanites. So, of his grandfather, he ignored completely. He heard, most probably Isaac, I'm sure, Isaac told him, Abraham found a wife for me, your mother, Rebekah, by sending a servant all the way back there. And your grandfather, made a very great restriction. Don't marry. Both of them, Esau and Jacob, heard it from their father when they were little. But guess what Esau wanted to do? He abandoned, he said, I don't care. He goes around, he looks at the Canaanite girls, looks very, decorated and beautiful. They make their hairs, they knew makeup from the very old time. And how they dress and how they talk and how they walk, they're flirting and they're lawless. So he got attracted. He took two Hittite wives, not only one. Abraham took one wife. Isaac took one wife. He, I don't care. Huh?
Maybe there was a sale.
Yeah, his
Buy
wife.
one free.
Yeah, exactly. That's what Laban did with Jacob. Buy one, get one free. I'm serious.
His.
That's Esau's way of thinking. That's his thinking. That's why the Bible in the Testament calls him profane. What does profane mean? He's not holy. He doesn't think holy. Anyway. They were grief to the mind, my grief of mind to Isaac and Rebekah, both of them. They were completely against everything they know. Whatever Isaac and Rebekah is trying to keep, they are destroying. He was acting like the unrestrained, lustful way of God's people at the time before the flood. Remember how it said? I showed you this. And the sons of God saw the daughters of women, that they are beautiful, and they picked from whatever they choose. The same thing. And then later in Genesis, he would despise his birthright even. He cares less about it. As a firstborn, seek to kill his brother, marry other women on top, and eventually leave the promised land altogether to inhabit the land of Edom. And he becomes Edom. Edom is red. He's a red, hairy guy. So he first started by slowly despising the way of his father and mother, not liking what they're doing. How can you deal with that? I'm talking about Isaac. So when kids do this in this stage, when people do this in this stage, they say, if Isaac and Abraham and Rebekah could not do anything about it, I think I'm going to be able to do that. Lord, have mercy. It's only the work of the Holy Spirit that actually can penetrate this hardness. Esau is the fourth in the list of excommunicated persons. God forbid. The fourth. Who are the fourth? Cain. Actually, Adam is the first one. He was not excommunicated, he was pushed a little bit further. Cain.
Ashmel.
Uh,
Ismail is Ashmel.
Canaan, his father, and Ishmael. Yibal Chemes. If I take Adam out, then Yibal is fourth, right? Jacob was Tam, the Hebrew word. T and Tav and Mim, or Ta and Mim. Tam. Tam, you know Tam. Tam in Arabic, what does that mean?
Tam.
Tam and in Semitic language, Tam is complete.
Tam, yeah.
Perfect, complete. That's what the Bible calls him, was Tam. Complete, gentle, plain, undefiled, upright. Jacob was obedient to his parents. That's he's not talking about his behavior, he's talking about his way of living. It's not a
عديها له بقى تاني.
This is not, I'm talking about, I'm talking about well-rounded.
What did Jacob do?
Yes, no, but he's well-rounded. He's agreeable with his parents. He wants to follow the lifestyle. Yes, he is the father of all Jews. When he wants something, he's gonna get it.
Yeah.
Okay, and shown in his this was repeatedly shown in his behavior. He was very determined to get the blessing of his father and carry on the covenant of God. He understood this is the most important thing. And no matter what I lose, even if I lose my mother and my father and my land temporarily, I'm going to get that blessing. And he knows. I think he sat there and he contemplated all. He resorted to guile, sneakiness, to take the birthright and the blessing from his brother. Jacob received the blessing of Isaac through a meal. His mother prepared the meal, made of 2 young goats that Jacob killed. That actually 2 young goats that Jacob killed, he killed it himself. Jacob had to put on the goat's skin and the clothing of Esau. Isaac exercised all his senses except his sight. He was old, and everybody in the Bible in the old times, he got cataract. You know what cataract is? Cataract is when the lens gets, I had the surgery done, my lens got that way. At the time, I started looking at the book of the prayer, and I put the glasses, I don't put the glasses, it doesn't make any difference. So I went to the doctor and said, you got cataract. Cataract is the lens started to get opaque. It's not translucent anymore. It's like the egg white. You know, the egg white is clear. You put it in the frying pan, yeah, becomes white. So how can you see with that? Almost all the old people in the Old Testament, they get blind, not because they get blindness, they actually get cataract, but nobody can do anything about it. So he got blind, right? So Isaac exercised all his senses, so he has to use all of his senses. Touch, smell,
And
hearing, and taste. And the blessing to confirm the identity of his son. Jacob struggled to obtain God's blessing through a liturgical meal that involved the senses. Hint, hint. So the blessing of Jacob the blessing of Isaac to Jacob is a profound story. It's one of the most profound stories in the Bible. Let me put it this way. Forget about Jacob. Who is the person that goes to take a blessing from his father, that his mother prepared it for him, and that involves himself, his own body. And when he goes like a slaughtered human being. Ill. And when he gets it, he delivered it to 12 children.
Oh. Sorry.
You get it?
Yes.
So
No, في حد.
for Jacob to get the blessing, he has to go to his father. It looks like he's slaughtered. Why? Have you ever smelled animals after they kill them?
No.
It's nauseating.
Yeah.
There's a smell about them, and maybe it's me. I remember the first time I actually attended the surgery with my uncle. He wanted to prepare me for medical school. He took me to his clinic and he was doing an appendectomy. The second the stomach of the guy, the man, was open, I had a very weird, I will never forget it. There was a weird smell, came out,
Yeah,
I dropped.
Like your
A C-section.
C-section is the same thing.
the same thing, yes?
مذبحة.
Yeah, the guts of a human being inside. The
Yes,
guts of animals
it
actually
smells
has the same
very-
smell. There's a smell to it
Yeah.
that is not bad, it's not good, it's something very weird that when you smell it, it just, I don't know why it is. It has to do something like we are aware of it, that this is death. So Jacob goes on with the skin of animals freshly cut, freshly slaughtered. And he goes there and his father hugs him, feel him, smell him. His mother actually has to put the clothes of Esau. Why?
So I can smell this.
Why? Why is smell of Esau's clothes is different than Jacob's? What's Jacob's work?
Because
Jacob is a? Jacob is a shepherd. How do you smell a shepherd? What's a shepherd smell like? Sheep.
Sheep.
The smell of sheep is not very fascinating. I
Yeah.
can tell you that. It's not really good. But what is the smell of the hunter? Where does he spend most of his time? In the wild, in the grass, near the trees, the wild plants. Well, how do they smell? Very nice. Very nice. The smell of a hunter is usually nice. So she put the clothes of Esau, but he goes on with the skin of animals on top of him. So this is a very complex thing. And then he goes into his father, and he goes with meat and bread and wine to his father. And he goes there, his father said, "Who is this?" "I'm your son Esau. I just found." He said, "Whoa, you got it in a hurry."
معلش الصوت يعني.
No, he said, "Come closer." It sounds like Jacob. And he comes and he puts his hand, he's not really knowing that his wife had tricked him. She knows what she's doing.
It wasn't expected.
He puts his hand over his neck. She had a little bit of sheep. Most probably Esau was very hairy.
Hairy.
Very, very hairy. So she puts his hand like this and he smells him. He says, the touch is the touch of Esau. The body is the body of Esau. But the sound is the sound of Jacob. Come here. And he smelled him. Oh, you have the smell. My son's smell is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. And then he kissed him. He kissed him in his mouth. That's how we do it in all times. He kissed his son. He took him affectionately and kissed him after he touched him, after he hugged him, after he ate from the food that he prepared. His heart was opened. This is how you get the blessing. And he gave him the blessing. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, but he knew that Esau was not doing well.
I know, you know.
So how he was wanting to give him the blessing despite that he was not doing well.
He wants to do, huh?
He's the oldest.
He's the firstborn, and he has some affection for Esau because he brings him food. The poor man has no pleasure in life left. The only thing he has is food. So who is that? Who is that who goes to his father? He tells Mary Magdalene, "Don't touch me,
Yeah.
for I have not yet ascended to." As if I'm Jacob going in. If someone stops Jacob and said, "Can I taste of what you have prepared for father? This looks very good. It smells so good. Can I take a little bit?" What would he say?
أنا كنت هعمل كده.
But the meal is not something extra. The meal is himself, his own body. The father is not going to eat. The father in him is not going to eat. He's going to take the son into him as our offering. That's why when the priest in the liturgy offers the bread and wine and says, the holy body, everybody bow down. What are we doing?
We're offering
We're offering the Christ, the slaughtered Christ to his Father. Before we get him back and eat him. And then the disciples have to get him back after he comes back from his Father. So this is a liturgical meal. And the image is so profound. Who gave that meal to Jesus? His mother. Say Mary. Say Mary prepared for him, give him the humanity that he's going to take to his Father. And he's giving him everything. But when God the Father looks at Jesus, he doesn't see Jesus, he sees us. Because he represents us. And when he comes back, he breathes on the, I'm thinking about it in my little mind, silly mind, and say, Jesus took a kiss from the Father. And when he came back, he blew that kiss on the disciples and receive the, what kiss the Father would give? The Father would give him his own spirit, his own life. It comes out from him. So this is the scene that is actually passing on the covenant. Where is Isaac getting them from? Where is Isaac? What is Isaac passing? Think about it. What is he passing?
the blessings that he blessed
Where is that blessing? Where did he get it?
from the altar.
When he was on the altar. When God actually made a swearing on top of him. Isaac is passing on his covenant that God has given. He was part of this deal. And he knew, he saw God, he heard him. And on the altar, he's passing on to Jacob. And then he goes to run, Jacob runs away, goes to Padan Aram. And then Jacob did not leave until his father blessed him and dismissed him. Jacob did not want to, by the way, this is what we do in the church, we take it from here. We needed to hear the Abuna says, go in peace from Jacob. Jacob did not leave until Isaac blessed him and told him, go in peace. He had to. Rachel became Jacob's replacement of his mother. He did not plan on marrying any other woman. He was coerced into marrying Leah by a trick from his uncle, and Bilhah and Zilpah by a pressure from his two wives. He was not interested in marrying more than one wife, which became a tradition. Jews and Muslims, you're allowed to marry up to
4.
Where did he get that from?
6.
Jacob,
They got the wrong side of the covenant. You get that? Jacob intention was not marrying Leah, nor Bilhah, nor Zilpah. He was interested in Rachel, but his uncle. When you live in a pagan culture, you're coerced, you're pressured into doing things that you're not supposed to do. And it's a misery, but then we have to deal with it. Then he had to struggle with God at night, and he lost his strength by God's blessing. His blessing from his father was confirmed. Jacob believed in the promises of God to his grandfather Abraham, and as a carrier of the blessing, he in turn blessed his 12 children in chapter 49 or 50 from Genesis. He blessed them one by one. He laid his hand on his children and grandchildren. Joseph, and the last one, in Padan Aram, while he was still a slave, Jacob was enslaved by his uncle. And then his uncle, when Joseph was 1 year old, he left. Rachel died, giving birth to Benjamin. Jacob loved for his mother and wife, was now resting in Joseph. He favored him over the rest of his children. Joseph had 2 dreams from God foretelling his future rule over his brothers. When he was sold to Egypt, God was with him. Joseph kept the commandments of God. And we know that these commandments come from Noah, by the way. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? Joseph is one of the strongest typologies of Christ, the beloved son of his father, the only beloved son of his father, who was envied by his brothers. They wanted to kill him and sold him for silver. He was sold for silver. Jesus was sold for the silver. God was with him and made him successful. He had a gift of interpreting dreams. He interpreted 2 dreams, one about bread and one about wine, before he became the savior of the world. Very interesting. That the 2 dreams that he ends his story with, before he gets to be the Safanat Fahniah, is bread and wine. The night Jesus is going to be betrayed, the night he's going to be going to the cross, he has bread and wine, and he consecrates them. And it talks about one elevation, and another one is crucifixion. He managed the food stores of the whole world and received from his hands. Joseph brought his children to his father Jacob, who came to Egypt to see him and live with him. God the Father adopts the children of the Gentile church to be his children and inherit the glory of the Son. Joseph became like Jesus when he brought the two children, Jacob did this. He said he crossed his hands. Why would he cross his hands blessing? By the cross we get the blessing. He crossed because he wanted the younger to take the blessing. I'm done. I think I'm done. And that's it. I'm
I have a
not going
question.
Yeah.
One more question.
Mm.
Why Jacob only gave his blessing to one of his sons? Sorry, Isaac gave his blessing to only one of his sons, but Jacob was able to give his blessing to the crowd.
Usually they bless both of them, but the first one to take on the mission. He's the mission. He's carrying on. He's going to have to confirm the covenant and carry it on. Let's pray. Thank you for the Father,
Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Through Christ Jesus our Lord, for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory
in the love
forever.
of the Father and Jesus Christ, the flesh of the Holy Spirit, be with you in peace.
O seu Espírito.
Praise the Lord.